Hi, this is Devon here. Just wanted to give everyone a quick heads up that this episode has a content warning for sexual assault due to some of the contents of the Witcher stories. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this first episode.
So, I've had thoughts about this.
I've had thoughts too. Let's begin the podcast proper. Welcome to Myth and Kin, a travelogue podcast about the Witcher series. I am Devon Carter. I'm basically responsible for this travesty, however it ends up going. If my co-host would be so kind to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Samuel Howitt. I'm also kind of responsible for how we're going about this at the moment.
Yeah. Basically, everyone's kind of aware of The Witcher as a popular Western RPG at this point. We're actually releasing this in fairly close proximity to the 10th anniversary of the first Witcher game by CD Projekt Red. But a lot of people haven't read the stories or even played the first game. Sam hasn't played the first game, but has played 2 and 3. So we're just gonna kind of work through the entire series, starting with the books. We've read, for this premiere episode, we've read the 2 Witcher anthologies that are comprised of several short stories and have a lot of stuff that becomes very relevant in the games.
Yeah, definitely. I was very surprised by how much of it actually is kind of just directly referenced in the games.
You'd know this more than me, obviously, but even just the stuff I know from gleaning it from context is kind of The Last Wish, which is the first chronological set of stories, but the second book to be published.
It's actually, I was looking at this earlier, it's actually the third book to be published, but it's a collection of the same stories in the first book. But
yeah, it's a really wonky publishing situation.
And then the translated order of how they are published is also completely different as well, because Sword of Destiny was not published until midway through all the other novels.
I've been reading these via like EPUB files, and the best option was like a fan translation that people had then recorrected to use the English translations for the names with like fucking Dandelion. His name is Jaskier, or I think is how you pronounce it.
Oh wow!
It translates to Buttercup. I guess they went with Dandelion.
See, it's interesting because I think I've read from the official translations because I've bought them, and like some of the names slightly change between from The Last Wish, the first one, to Sword of Destiny, the second collection.
Sword of Destiny did come much later, as you said, in terms of translations for some reason. But I feel like The Last Wish is full of, like... It's meant to be a valid entry point, but also to fill a lot of, like, gaps that the Sword of Destiny stories left.
Yeah, definitely. I think The Last Wish has the setup for everything. It has the short story The Witcher, which I think is the initial story to set things up.
Yes, and also that is of particular relevance because it's actually adapted in the opening video for The Witcher 1. Like that entire scene with the Striga in Vizima, I think. Because it's like they hadn't gotten all the proper nouns and the translation settled. There's some little things like I think the version I read translated it as Vizim, but it's Vizima in the games.
Yeah, it's all to do with King Foltest's daughter.
Yes,
King Foltest of Redania, who does become a prominent character in the games at some point.
Yeah, he shows up. He's in The Witcher 1, but also he's a hugely prominent figure in the opening of Witcher 2. Like, he's the entire reason you're waging war on a place.
Yeah, basically, The Last Wish as a whole... So, it's basically wrapped in a frame story. So, has this frame story called The Voice of Reason.
Yeah.
Which is in multiple chapters in between each other short story, and it kind of feels... It feels like a clip show episode of a TV show.
Yeah, it really does. Like, I've also made this comparison. A lot of these stories feel like they'd be side quests in a Witcher game. Like, the Grain of Truth, which is the one with the cursed dude living in a mansion that obeys his whims, feels like it would be a side quest.
Oh, for sure.
And it feels like it's either side quests or justifications for the multitude of accolades that people know Geralt for. Like, oh, he's the Butcher of Blaviken, or Blaviken, or however the hell. And that's what that's what the lesser evil is.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even that the fact that he gets called the Butcher of Blaviken is just like, he killed 3 people.
Yeah.
Like, that's a remarkably low amount of bloodshed to get, oh, the Butcher.
Yeah, compared to some bloodshed that does happen within the Witcher series, it's fairly small.
Yeah. A Question of Price is probably the most, like, roundly important story from this. Because that's the one where Geralt sets up, like, I don't know how to refer to it, but like there's like kind of a geese where if you ask of someone for like a kind of a something that you weren't expecting when you get home.
Yeah, a Witcher, basically it sets up I believe calls it the law of surprise, which is basically when a Witcher or someone else like has saved someone, they usually ask for, in return, something that they come home to and weren't expecting.
Or some variance on that.
Yeah. And in the case of A Question of Price, it is... So the setup of the story of A Question of Price is the Witcher is hired to be at this royal banquet by Queen Calanthe?
Yes, that's her.
Sure. Queen Calanthe to... basically find a suitor for her daughter, Princess Pavetta, and she basically wants to ensure an alliance with the nation of Skellige, and wants Geralt of Rivia, the Witcher, to ensure that happens. But basically, a man in an iron helmet shows up, and because of the law of surprise...
That he struck with with the princess's late father. He feels entitled to her hand in marriage.
Because he did not expect Pavetta to be born once he returned home. And basically, that story ends up with the knight in armor kind of being revealed to be cursed, but then being reunited with Princess Pavetta.
Apparently they had met outside of the context of that meeting already and had already realized that they were bound for each other.
And the kind of lifts the basically finds he was cursed to be this monster, and being together kind of lifts the curse. Because
of the law of surprise being like a matter of destiny, and destined children tend to bring good fortune or lift curses, etc.
And basically, because of a bunch of people, because the banquet is there for several people to want to marry Princess Pavetta, it kind of starts a lot of fights that this guy has just suddenly turned up.
Yeah. And they all try and get a stab in at him, and which Geralt blocks what would have been a fatal blow, and then he is promised by the knight in question, who does end up engaged to the princess. He is promised whatever you want, and he enacts the law of surprise, and it turns out that they've known each other quite well because she's pregnant.
Yep.
And he's just like, I'll be back in 6 years to see if my surprise has come. And he does come back in the Sword of Destiny, but
yeah,
Sword of Destiny is weird.
Yeah. So I would say The Last Wish, the titular story from The Last Wish, is also kind of a sort of important one, because that sets up, introduces Yennefer of Vengerberg, which in the translation on the original is written as Yennefer Vergerberg.
Yeah. I mean, close enough shape-wise of the letters that I kind of glazed over it.
It's kind of what I assume, because these are translated books, these were originally written in Polish.
Yeah.
And because a lot of these writings kind of use a lot of made-up names and words, like, there's a bit of creative license in doing some of the translation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll just simplify it really. Basically, Geralt and his friend Dandelion find a genie. Dandelion gets injured from the genie.
Yeah.
And then Geralt basically ends up coming across Yennefer of Vengerberg, who is a sorceress, kind of a bit power-hungry.
Yeah.
Helps cure Dandelion, but then uses Geralt to then actually try and get the genie for herself.
Yeah.
But because Geralt has the seal for the genie, he's entitled to the genie's wishes.
Yeah.
And his last wish is to be, I suppose...
It's left unsaid.
It's left unsaid, but it's made very clear, I know especially in the video game, that he is to be forever bound to Yennefer.
Yeah. Again, I haven't played as much of the series, so I basically only know her from, like, the wiki page where she is described as his soulmate, and I think that's literally, he bound them together with that last wish.
There is a side quest in The Witcher 3 called The Last Wish, which relates a lot to this story.
There's also, in The Last Wish, there is the Edge of the World, which is not really worth anything, except that it actually introduces Dandelion and the fact that elves exist. Yes,
elves kind of become quite prominent in... I can't speak to the Witcher one, but they're very prominent in The Witcher 2.
I can definitely say that the Scoia'tael definitely are a major player in The Witcher 1, because they do have, like, an ending path, so...
Yeah, so the Scoia'tael are very prominent in The Witcher 2 and 1 and 2, but yeah.
The whole situation with the races in this game are that dwarves and halflings, I think halflings also, but I know definitely dwarves, lived on the continent, which is its proper name, before the elves came, and then the elves came and subjugated them, and then humans showed up and subjugated the elves, and elves are very mad that they're getting played by their own rules, basically. That's basically the entirety of it.
Yeah. It's fantasy racism stuff.
Yeah. I'm white as hell, and I'm not terribly up on my racism, but I think it's kind of fucked up in general, and I know that there was an entire hubbub about The Witcher 3 not having any people of color, and people were going, well, it's Polish mythology, and it's just like, there's still fucking racism in your video game, even if it's not, like, people of color. Like, this is, ugh.
There are also people of color in The Sword of Destiny, because Zeracania...
Yeah, there are! Oh my god!
Yeah, because there are two Zeracanians who barely speak, but I think let's not get too far off. So...
Also, because I fear that we will find no better context than this, this series of stories has some issues with women. Hoo boy.
Yes, I do agree.
Like, okay, the women in order of, like, appearance are a nagging priestess, a mute nymph type? Like, I don't know what Iola's deal is.
It's like a water nymph thing?
Yeah, that apparently exists only to go in, like, she's mute, because that's part of her, like, her faith as a priestess of, as like an acolyte of the goddess of fertility, which is the place that Geralt is being, like, nursed back to health at for the entirety of the framing story. Then, in The Witcher, which has the princess that is a Striga, the only other woman that appears is someone who won't stop screaming because people tried to beat the shit out of Geralt and he killed them. Like, she's just this background character who literally does nothing but scream at the top of her lungs.
Yeah.
And then, oh man, the Grain of Truth was the worst, because it was just like, okay, this guy lives in the mansion, apparently merchants send their daughters to live with him for a year, and then apparently he's found true love, and it's a vampire lady.
Oh, it turns out the whole reason he is a monster is because of the vampire lady, because she's been using him.
Yep, and then she, in her last gasp, undoes the curse, and it's just like, so you have the monster, the object of affection, and the fridging victim all in like one scene for this one story, and it just, it hurt.
And there's definitely Andrei Sapkowski, which is the first time I've had to say.
Yeah, let's both say it together. Andrei Sapkowski. That's how you say it.
The way he describes women is definitely a lot more about their what. I found he often started with the legs.
Yeah.
He starts with the thighs. It's too much.
Yeah, I feel that is entirely accurate. But oh my god, no, the lesser evil, the Butcher of Blaviken story has the bit where like the fucking wizard is just like, the wizard Stregobor is just like, fucking mutants are all sorts of wacky bullshit, and their outright insane tendency to cruelty, aggression, sudden bursts of anger, and an unbridled temperament were noted. And then Geralt goes, you can say that about any woman. What?
Yeah.
All that after apparently Stregobor was like living in a wizard tower where, there's an illusory woman. Drop the fact that you can fuck the illusion in there too. It's just like, No,
it's, it's some real, I feel also some of this does kind of manifest in the games a bit as well.
Yeah, I definitely cannot speak to The Witcher 3, which is the one that everyone will love and talk about, and that's where, like, Ciri shows up again, and, like, maybe that tempers it a bit, but, like, 1 and 2 definitely kind of put me off with its tone.
3 definitely gets better about it, but I'm pretty sure 1 probably isn't great for it, considering 2's not fantastic for it.
And 2 dropped the system where you get cards for having sex with women.
Oh yeah,
Not even, like, named women, like, you had sex with a prostitute. Here's a card.
No, I much prefer Witcher 3's card system.
If Witcher 1 had Gwent with the sex cards, I'd die.
Oh no. I think I liked bits of The Last Wish. But, like, it has a lot of problems.
Yeah, I did. I liked some of the concepts it was going for. I didn't like how, like, the bad girl in the Blaviken story was basically just Snow White.
Yeah.
And there was some glib comment in another one of the stories about how, like, no, I think it was that one where, like, she was sealed in a crystal prison and some prince broke her out. And then she went back to being a bandit with a bunch of gnomes, and it's just like, we get it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely leaning into taking from fairy tales.
Yeah, well, I feel like some of that is kind of appropriate, but Dandelion, I hate his stupid everything. But, like, he has the bit in the story in Sword of Destiny where the siren and the king are, like, trying to get the other to sacrifice something to be with their love. And he's just like, I wrote this story about the mermaid who gave up her voice so that she could walk on land. And it's just like, a bard doing that is fine. Like, that just being, like, actual facts of things that are happening in the world feels a little bit forced.
Yeah, there are some aspects to that. Like, I do like, as described in one of the stories in The Last Wish, where there's the troll under the bridge who collects a toll, and, like, they keep him there because he fixes the bridge.
Yeah, like, little things like that, where it's just like, this is how a seemingly weird fairy tale thing would exist in like, sensible setting. That's cool, but, like, the mutant who killed the man who was going to... Oh, yeah. We should probably put, like, a content warning on this episode because it's edgy fantasy. Yeah, no. Mrs. Not Snow White was a mutant. She was sent into the woods to be killed. The guy who was meant to kill her instead decided to assault her, and then she stabbed him with her cloak pin and got away, and then became leader of a halfling bandit tribe.
Yeah, it definitely puts women in unnecessary situations like that.
Oh, also, there was the bit that I want to go back to, because it's the worst. When Yennefer is introduced, she is described by Geralt in her monologue to be, she's attractive, but that's because she's a sorcerer, or a sorceress, and a sorceress could use magic to make herself beautiful, and how she was deeply ugly inside, and they all had eyes of ugly girls who didn't know how to look pretty. And I was just like, oh man, this guy has problems with women.
Yes, I definitely feel that way.
I've said this before on Twitter too. I'm worried about Ciri as a character. I keep feeling like I'm saying that name wrong because that's an iPhone thing, but
no, it's the correct way of saying it. Ciri is that's how you say it.
Yeah, I'm worried. I'm worried about her development over the course of the next 5 books that we're going to be reading, maybe 6. Because I feel like maybe she's good in The Witcher 3 and has like room to grow apart from this fiction.
Oh yeah.
But this author is not someone I'd like want to handle that at all. She's like 9. She's like fucking 9 when she reunites with Geralt at the end of Sword of Destiny. It's just like, oh, please don't ruin this tiny child.
Yeah, I really hope it doesn't get much worse. But things I liked in the last race, like I kind of thought the Edge of the World was a bit of fun with the goat-headed guy.
The Edge of the World was interesting because, like, the goat-headed guy, who I forget the fucking name of the monster type. Like, there's a bunch of really specific monster naming that I've forgotten because it's specific.
It's a Sylvan.
Right, Sylvan. And then there's like, I don't know how the fuck you're supposed to say it. It's Bruxa for the vampire lady in Grain of Truth.
Oh, Bruxa.
Is it Bruxa?
The Bruxa, yeah. Great thing about the games is they are all fully voice acted.
Yeah, that's true. And also they pull very deeply from this smorgasbord of monster types.
Yeah. But, the Sylvan, where they had the failed attempt of the fairy tale-ish kind of way to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And then one of them is they have seeds. So basically they bring seeds and metal balls and eat seeds in front of him, and
when he asks for some, they give him the metal balls instead.
And there's a bunch of things like that they do with him. Like, this is basically something that happened before they met him, because when they meet him, when Geralt and Dandelion meet the Sylvan, he is throwing several metal balls at them.
Like, they gave him way too many.
Yeah. It's the thing I really like about The Edge of the World is it kind of, with the Sylvan, kind of starts with this whole fantasy thing. Like, the Sylvan challenges Geralt to a riddle contest and such like that, but it just becomes like a really awkward kind of fight.
Yeah.
Like a fist fight, basically.
Yeah.
Where no one looks good.
And then Geralt gets bashed in the head by an elf who shows up, and, like, the entire thing's just fucking screwy. Nothing goes to plan. And then you find out that there's, like, a whole bunch of stuff going on with the elves who had apparently never learned to do any farming or anything, which is weird.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing they'd set up with the elves is the elves kind of relied on what already grew.
So they were more foragers than farmers.
Yeah, but it kind of sets, like, humans as more colonists and industrious, kind of cultivating land to get what they want.
Yeah, there's more about that in Sword of Destiny with the Bounds of Reason and, like, the existence of 3 jackdaws. Borch.
Yeah, Borch. So yeah, that is The Last Wish, I suppose. It's
kind of sketchy on a lot of bits.
Yeah, to be honest, it's hard to recommend these books.
Yeah. It's good for context, but I probably wouldn't be like, oh, this is a thing I would recommend anyone read without, like, huge qualifications on that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Should we move on to The Sword of Destiny?
That we probably should.
So, The Sword of Destiny actually, like, came out in English around the time of The Witcher 3. In fact, I think it might have been, like, within weeks, or even in the same day. Because it came in May 2015, and I know that's when Witcher 3 came out as well. So the first story in Sword of Destiny is an interesting idea, but there's some kind of really shitty things that happen during it.
Yeah. Like, if this was someone's introduction to everything in this universe, I wouldn't blame them for just dropping it entirely. The Bounds of Reason is like, okay, this man is a witcher, he kills things, some fucking ungrateful people tried to rob him while he was off doing this job, but some kind traveler named Borch, which is an incredible name, and his two foreign warrior women saved him the trouble, and they travel together. They don't have anywhere in particular they're going, and then they hear news of a dragon. Then a neighboring kingdom whose king is going to pursue the dragon to claim its head and force a kingdom to wed him to the princess for political reasons.
Yeah.
So they kind of join that train. Geralt has a code of conduct.
Well, Geralt does not have a code of conduct.
Yeah, Geralt says he has a code of conduct, and I guess, like, he does in some way. He doesn't kill, like, sapient creatures.
Yeah.
Along with a weirdly, like, real quick, I want to mention that, like, the weirdly progressive moment that fucking Geralt has in Something More at the end of this, where he's just like, well, woman's right. Woman has a right to choose whether she has an abortion, and it comes out of nowhere because he's talking about his mom. And it's just like, did Geralt just say that? Like, where did this come from?
It seems so out of character.
Yeah, like, I had to stop.
Like, the rest of the...
Yeah. Where was I going with that?
Basically, so should we just say what... I don't feel like we've actually said what a Witcher is.
A Witcher is kind of a monster hunter who specifically, like, takes quests from people. They're mutants. They've undergone mutations via various alchemical means, and they are generally proficient in some crude forms of magic. Not nearly as powerful as, like, wizards or sorceresses, but generally enough to, like... They can light things on fire or push things with their mind.
No, they can also ingest potions which would be normally poisonous to ordinary humans.
Yeah, I think they undergo something called the Trial of the Grasses, which
Yes, they do.
That is the whole mutation thing, and it gives them some ridiculous differences and also makes them completely sterile if they survive it.
Yeah, and expands their life by quite a bit. So, throughout these stories, Geralt is probably around the age of 80.
Yeah, Geralt is an octogenarian.
It's somewhere between his his late 70s and early 80s, because Ciri is about 20-ish in The Witcher 3, and there is an offhanded mention of Geralt being nearly 100. And, in fact, you will actually get to see the Trial of Grasses in The Witcher 3.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess is something to do with Ciri?
No, it's a lot weirder.
Okay. Well, I can't wait till we get to the weird stuff and not the weirdly awful stuff. Speaking of that, this...
We were talking about the Bounds of Reason.
Yes, we were. They go join a caravan of this king who is going to kill this dragon. They take... Geralt ends up, despite his objections to killing sapient creatures, which... like, he considers dragons to be also, I guess. I don't know if dragons are just in that pool or if he has a specific reason for dragons.
The thing is, he has no interest, but as soon as someone mentions Yennefer being there,
yeah,
he just, like, immediately wants to go.
Yep.
In fact, bribes the guard.
Yep, he's just like, well, just imagine I wanted to pass here, and the guard's just like, oh, I wouldn't even do it for 300. And they haggle out a bribe, and then they also take a magician or wizard that comes along.
Yes.
Doragary.
Yeah.
God.
So then basically a bunch of bickering avalanches of all these people trying to get to... Like, basically they all try to get to the dragon, and all bunch of adventurous stuff happens to try and stop them. So an avalanche happens at one point, and then another dragon shows up, which is not the dragon they're hunting. Mm-hmm. It is a golden dragon, which is not supposed to exist.
Yep.
The golden dragon, Villain Trettenmirth, I believe is how you might say it. It's a mouthful. Challenges the
convoy to honorable duels.
And multiple people end up crippled or dead.
Yeah.
Then there's a huge fight that ensues in which Geralt, Yennefer, and Dandelion end up tied. Dandelion there?
Yeah, Dandelion's there.
Yeah, Dandelion's there. He just sort of shows up when they meet the guard.
Yeah. No, he was already there when they meet the guard, sitting there waiting to pass.
Yeah, and so those three end up tied up, and yeah, how would you say this? Yennefer ends up kind of humiliated.
Yeah, the Reavers, who is one of the groups of mercenaries that stuck around to fight said dragon because they're probably one of the stronger contenders in fighting a dragon, they decided to tie everyone else up because they didn't want to comply with the rules they set for how the loot got split. And Yennefer gets stripped, and one of the dwarves is just like, yeah, you'll be nice to toy with later. And then they go off to do their shit. And then Dandelion is a fucking asshole. Because he's just like, well, we're probably going to die. She's completely naked over there. They're probably going to rape her. Let me watch as she squirms, and because she's pretty. And it's just like, Dandelion, I'm going to fucking stab you myself. Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
This comes up in Witcher 2, which is after Geralt has had amnesia and doesn't remember the Reavers doing this. And one of them let slip that, like, glad you let us off the hook for that rape thing. And it's just like, you have a dialogue option. It's just like, rape thing? What the fuck? Which I'm glad, but also, why did that happen?
Yeah, it's completely unnecessary. So, the king basically goes, fuck this, my best knight's crippled, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And then it turns out the dragon is in fact Borch, or three jackdaws.
Yeah, because that's... his name apparently translates to roughly 3 blackbirds.
So, and basically, I don't know... just sort of
I think,
flies off.
Yeah, well, like, the implication they have in the final, like, dialogue of that is that he's kind of acting as a witcher of sorts for, like, monstrous races that aren't necessarily, like, communicative with humans, but definitely are worried about humans taking over. And kind of puts a finer point on the fact that humans have kind of taken the entire land by the throat when it comes to colonization. Yeah. And in the hands of a smarter author, this might have been like set the tone for something, but it doesn't that I know of.
Really. So I think the rest of the Sword of Destiny just kind of generally sets the tone for the universe, the world a bit.
Yeah, I will say there is one story I liked like a lot from this book, and that was Eternal Flame. Because it's just like the 2 women who show up in this. Oh, it's just like this woman who wants to beat the shit out of Dandelion, and a barmaid who's just like, can you not be loud? Because the pitch of Eternal Flame is that Geralt is on personal time going to Novigrad, I think, is the city of...
Yes.
Yeah, because he wanted to get a new coat. And then he gets wrapped up in Dandelion's bullshit and goes to meet a halfling merchant whose name I cannot and will not remember, but...
it's Dainty something.
Yeah, let's just call him Dainty, because he has a long second family name. But they go to meet him because Dandelion is broke as a joke, and they meet him, and then it turns out it's a mimic. Then they have to deal with the fact that, because the real one shows up, and they have to run around the city trying to find out what the mimic has been up to in his name for the last 3 days. It's really just kind of a fun romp.
Yeah.
Then it turns out alright, because, like, it turns out that the mimic, through means unknown, because they don't want to bother, like, trying to explain it, they're just like, we don't know how this works, mimics are really good at mimicking things. He had all the know-how of said halfling merchant, and made some really good purchases and sales, and made a shit ton of money, and just wants to live, it turns out.
Yeah.
And it ends up revealing that a mimic had also taken the place of, there was, like, some council member or security officer.
It's, so there's, like, a secret service kind of thing, who work for the Order of the Eternal Flame, which is kind of a religious order based around Novigrad. They don't like magic, and they don't like any sort of monster to do with magic and all sorts of that, and they burn people on stakes.
Yeah.
For that stuff. And basically, it's found that a mimic has taken the form of a higher up within that, so kind of lets the other one off the hook, which is, so the other mimic is named Dudu.
Yeah, he has a longer name, too, but...
Dudu is the one that will be used eventually further on, because we'll get to meet Dudu again in the games.
That is incredible.
Yeah, in one of the main quests, and it's a lengthy quest.
That's kind of good. I guess there's also a shard of ice that we should talk about, but...
yeah.
Geralt gets into a fight with a wizard over Yennefer, and then she dumps them both and fucks off. That's the entire story.
Yeah, that's it.
Fighting wizards is okay, but also they're both assholes.
But they don't actually fight, even, because she's dumped them both.
Yeah, they get into a tiff, and then they were like, oh, we're both wrong. Bye. they just drop it, and that's the end of the story. It's such a... Like, the only thing it does is, like, make Yennefer, in the probable words of the author, just makes Yennefer a bitch. Like,
I mean, that, but I don't think, like, there's kind of a good point that, like, Geralt and the wizard don't really need to fight for her, is also kind of the point it's trying to make. Of course, it does not do this with any touch of,
tact?
Tact, yeah.
Like, it's such a nothing story, because all it amounts to is Geralt going and getting drunk. And being like, well, she's fucking this dude, and I'm fighting him tomorrow. I don't want to do this. And then he walks down an alley trying to get himself killed, and they fuck. And people who assault him are like, oh shit, that's a witcher. I'm out of here. And it's just...
Yeah.
Goodness.
I suppose we also have A Little Sacrifice.
Which is the one I mentioned with the Little Mermaid thing.
Yes.
This A Little Sacrifice is basically... The synopsis I wrote is making me chuckle because it's stupid. A king whose siren love has not borne fruit tasks Geralt with uncovering the cause of fishermen's murders. He discovers Sahagin while befriend zoning Dandelion's bardic rival. Yeah, so over the course of A Little Sacrifice, he kind of... Well, another bard whose name... I forgot her name already. I think it's Essie.
Essie. It's Little Eye Essie.
Yes.
Either nickname or stage name, but she kind of develops feelings for Geralt. And Geralt does not...
Yeah, I don't...
Geralt doesn't really reciprocate because he's completely obsessed with Yennefer still.
Yeah, and I also don't like... They've met once, and then I don't know, like...
Oh, yeah.
Like, they meet twice, and then they talk to the siren who Geralt was talking with for the king before. The siren goes, oh, are you walking on the beach with your lover? And he goes, no, we hardly know each other. And she gets offended at that. They've talked like 3 times total. They've known each other for less than a day. That's true. Yeah.
The story, I mean, I'm not sure, like, because basically, I don't know what to think of Little Sacrifice, because it does end with them trying to find out the fisherman's murders, and then finding that, oh no, there's an entire civilization here, underwater.
Yeah, and like, it's just the fact that it's revealed, like, oh yeah, no, you humans will never colonize the entire sea, and the sea will fight back, and you cannot have the sea. And the king's just like, oh, fucking, I'll win, you idiot. And it's just like, no, fucking kings are idiots. But there's just like, they get attacked by a Sahagin while investigating this why this fisherman's boat turned up covered in blood and no bodies.
Yeah. And then after that, there's the Sword of Destiny.
Yeah.
That's where we're actually introduced to Ciri.
Yeah. Properly, anyway. I feel like the metaphor that the Sword of Destiny represents doesn't translate well to English or something, because it felt it was missing something.
Yeah, that's the whole thing with a lot of this, like, over the course of reading all of this, I feel like maybe there's things that are lost in translation. Like, I'm not excusing any of the shitty stuff, because that would still be shitty in any language.
Yeah.
But there are definitely things about the Witcher stories that feel just kind of odd in English, which I don't think comes across so much in the games.
As much as I like to link classics of game whatever the fuck number, the Lords are coming! That video makes me laugh every time, and it's the worst thing in the world, and I know it's from Witcher 1. But like, generally, the localization has been pretty strong on those games.
Yeah, I would say it's not, like, some of the voice work in the first one isn't great. I don't think Doug Cockle, the voice of Geralt, does a really great job initially. He kind of grows into the role a bit more, and they kind of make the role play to his strengths as an actor eventually, but he's kind of a bit dry and dull to start with. But yeah, so Ciri, I don't know, she's just a child in the Sword of Destiny. That's what more can you say?
Yeah, the Sword of Destiny is basically Geralt is like on a mission to negotiate some shit with the Queen of the Dryads, and has to wander into their territory, and in the process discovers a whole lot of bodies, and one survivor, and the princess that they were trying to recover, Ciri, who was originally bound for like a marriage meeting, or to be married.
Yeah.
And they are taken to the center of the Dryad Forest, and then Geralt's just like, well, you're probably going to be stuck here because Dryads are kind of recruited as well as born. But Ciri is she was told that she is destined for someone, and she has accepted that destiny even if Geralt hasn't at this point.
Yeah, that's pretty much really it. Is the Sword of Destiny. It's okay. Dryads all living with nature, and
they have like a water of the great tree or something like that like turns, kind of brainwashes girls into being dryads. It definitely makes them forget their original identity as Brienne, who was originally named Mona, but apparently lived long enough with the dryads that she became one.
Well, the thing is like, it stopped, the water stopped working with her as someone, because she remembers that she was Mona.
I don't think it's like an absolute thing. I think it's probably like, if you're around in this culture for long enough and kind of take in that stuff, you'd probably eventually reach a saturation point, and Geralt being there kind of probably snapped her out of it, along with Ciri being immune to the stuff.
Yeah, and then we get to something more.
Something more is interesting-ish.
I feel like it sort of fills in gaps through flashback.
Yeah, but it doesn't do that like very clearly. So I had a moment where I thought I was having like a stroke or something, where it was just like, okay, he was just in the wagon. Why are they at Beltane? Like, what is going on?
It's mostly told through
hallucinogenic dreams that Geralt is having while he's recovering from wounds in a cart. He got a bunch of wounds while helping a merchant, I guess. I never was super clear on what Yurga did.
Yeah, he just had a load of... He has a cart with a load of valuables in them.
Yeah.
Which also, because Geralt saved this guy, also he invoked the law of surprise on this man.
The guy was just like, I'll give you anything, and then shut his mouth, and was just like, oh fuck, I just said that, didn't I? And and then Geralt was just like, I'll get this law of surprise thing a second try.
And
serious at the end again.
Yeah, funnily enough, he goes back to the man's home, his wife's there, and goes, oh, we've taken someone in. And he's like, oh no, the law of surprise. And it's Ciri.
Yep.
The child of surprise.
Yeah, because in one of the flashbacks, you find out it's been some time since the Sword of Destiny story, and the kingdom had been taken over and ruined by Nilfgaardians.
Yeah.
So everyone in that city fucking died, but Ciri managed to escape.
Yeah, but Something More also has a flashback to the first time. So when Geralt initially invoked the Law of Surprise for Ciri, he said he'd come back in 6 years, and he did, and that's a flashback in Something More.
Yeah.
But Ciri's not actually there.
I think she probably was in the group, but she, like they didn't make that connection. Because, like, they use the phrase, do you want to look into the eyes of destiny? So I think there needs to be something like eye contact or something to be like, oh.
Also, like, Geralt isn't there on purpose either.
Yeah, he's there for something else.
And just happens because of destiny, I suppose.
Yeah. He and Queen Calantha argue about destiny, and he's just like, look, you can spin this all you want. If you ask me to leave, I'll leave. I don't actually want to rob you of something just because of fucking destiny, pretty much. And then he invokes the Law of Surprise again after the Sword of Destiny thing, and it's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're literally asking for it at this point.
Yep. But at the end of Something More, he basically accepts Ciri.
Yeah.
He takes her in.
Which was nice. Like, he's just like, well, I asked for this, and Destiny has given to me 3 times now. So I might as well accept this Something More. Also, in the process of Something More, he makes a stop at, like, a tar maker's clearing as part of the journey via wagon, and they have a healer, and that healer turns out to be his mom.
Oh.
Yeah. She knows his name, and yeah, he makes a bunch of snide comments, and he's just like, well, okay, I'm actually asleep now, because she just, like, forces him to pass out with magic.
But the thing with how that story also goes is that, like, because he's on so much hallucinogens...
Yeah, which she tells him, like, that, whether she's a vision or, like, real, like, she tells him, hey, don't do all these hallucinogens, they don't do anything. Like, you're just tripping. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's very strange. Also, during that story, he meets Triss Merigold.
Yeah.
Who will become a major character.
She's the first person you can have sex with in Witcher 1. I figured as much.
Well...
like, she's there.
Yeah. Well, she kind of is generally a major love interest in... I don't know so much in the books, but she is in the games.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's...
She is the lady at the start of Witcher 1 that you have to help out with potions and, like... And then also, if you say, like, 2 nice things, you end up having sex with her. That's how Witcher 1 goes.
Oh.
Yeah. It's gonna be something when we get there.
Yeah, it's gonna be strange, maybe.
Yeah.
Not great, but we'll see. Yeah, so yeah, that's the last wish and Sword of Destiny.
Yep.
What do you make of the whole thing?
Personally, these have been such a smattering of, like, weird and largely unrelated stories that I'm looking forward to having a novel that's, like, it has a through line.
Yeah. It feels like there's been no consistency between any of the stories. Like, they vary wildly in tone, in quality.
Yeah. And like I said, of these, I probably only really liked one of the, like... 12, 13 we had.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I can't recommend these books, if I'll be honest.
Yeah, they're not great. We'll see when it comes to the novels. Like, I really hope the novels are more consistent and good, but we'll see.
Yeah, so when I first played The Witcher 2, I had no clue what was going on in the story of that game, or who anyone was, but nowadays there's much more things to catch yourself up on just the events of the Witcher stories and novels.
There's definitely a pair of videos that I saw that someone on Reddit made, which, like, people on Reddit make tons of useful things sometimes. Just don't go to Reddit. But, like, there was recap videos for Witcher 1 and 2 for people who were wanting to get into 3 without playing the first 2, which is fair. Like, Witcher 1 especially is a really rough game. I've played a bit of it, and it's just kind of like, oh, this is BioWare without BioWare expertise on how to make a video game.
Yeah, it's really odd. There's like plenty of recap videos out there that will surmise what happens in the novels and kind of important events. So, from the quality of The Last Wish and sort of Destiny, I'm not sure it's worth checking them out yourself. I've kind of had this constant nagging feeling ever since having played some of the Witcher games to get more context, so it's kind of why I'm going for this, but...
Yeah. And I'm a weirdo who loves open world games with giant checklists of things to do, so I really want to play Witcher 3, and I really want it to be good, but I also am the insufferable person who wants to read the entire series and play the entire thing before I get there.
I'm sure your idea was just to start with the first game.
Yeah.
And I just went, what about the books?
Yeah, it kind of was, and then I was just like, well, Witcher 1 is kind of like a soft reset of, like, everything you need to know, because, like, Geralt gets amnesia, and then it kind of fills in the relevant bits of all the Witcher plot for 2 and 3 as you go forward in the games. But, like, yeah, I think the books were a good idea, and I probably would have ended up reading them myself, even if we weren't going to do them for this, just because they're out there and they're something to consider.
Yeah, they're just books I've owned for a long while, and now I've got a perfect excuse to start reading them all.
Yep, and that's how all of my podcasts go, because DGC, I like playing JRPGs, but I need excuses to play old ones. Good. This one, I'd like an excuse to read these things and have, like, partners in suffering.
Yeah. And we've got 5 or 6 more novels to go.
5 and a 6th coming out in April or May. So we might jam that in before we get to the games, or might pair it with the start of Witcher 1, at least.
Yeah. Well, the last novel that's still yet to come out in English released between the release of Witcher 2 and 3. But probably doesn't have anything to do with them because, like...
It's contemporary with, like, the Last Wish stories.
And Andrzej Sapkowski is not a huge fan of the games.
Oh.
Yeah, he's not that involved with the games, mostly out of sort of sense of, I don't get video games, so why should I be involved? kind of thing, which is fair enough.
I think I'm glad that he's not involved with the video games.
Yeah! Having played the video games, I do agree.
Oh my. But yeah, we'll probably work the 6th novel in with the Witcher 1 segment of this podcast. This is also a strange podcast to do because it's probably the one where I know that there's going to be an endpoint sometime in this decade that I can definitely pinpoint because there's only so much Witcher stuff.
Yeah, unless we play Gwent forever.
I don't need triple triad bullshit. I hate...
Well, no, there's the actual separate Gwent game.
Yeah, but then we just turn into fucking Hearthstone podcast and no one needs that.
No, nobody needs that. Yeah, that's... did we get any questions?
No, we didn't. But
oh well.
Next time, you can send us questions about the first Witcher novel, which is... Let me find my stupid list. Where did I put it? No.
Blood of Elves.
Blood of Elves, that's the one. You can send us questions about Blood of Elves by sending an email with your question to witchercast@jrpgsaredead.fyi. I am going to be using the fact that I can have email setups there in the future. But yes, next time we'll be covering Blood of Elves.
maybe a little bit less scattershot, as it's a single novel as opposed to a collection of wildly varying short stories.
2 collections, even. This is very dense. But yes, thank you for listening. Join us next time, and we'll see you then.
Bye.